Hey everyone, I'm going to talk all about how OCD can kind of grip its teeth into our finances, all the different compulsions I tend to see or avoidance behaviors, the belief systems around it. I'm going to obviously use the first book on the reading list, How to Stubbornly Refuse. If you're looking for these books and you haven't started them yet, you can find them at OCDrecovery.com underneath the free resource tab. They are very important for learning how to break down those strong, dogmatic, irrational beliefs that we hold that kind of keep all the cycles going, which perpetuate the compulsions and the reassurance seeking. I always tell people, when you become much more of a preference-based person in the sense of, you have these values or ways you want to live your life, but you're not holding them in such strong, rigid manners. There's no need to really do compulsions or reassurance anymore, but you won't be able to recover by just cutting out behaviors. You will need to look into your beliefs, usually a little bit deeper. And finances, there's no shortage of that because of all the strong black and white conditional self-acceptance belief systems that we see based around money. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below. Maybe you're finding this video for the first time. We'll title it something like financial anxiety or, finance compulsions, etc. That kind of hit a broad base more in the algorithm. So it's not just particularly focused on OCD because many people, the things I'm about to go over, this goes far beyond the boundaries of just OCD. This is people who do not have OCD that are living their life very much in this control mechanism, thinking they're going to live forever, thinking they're even going to be able to enjoy the fruits of passing things down to their family. They won't because you'll be dead and you won't have really any consciousness of that, at least the way I see the world. Could be wrong on that. These are all strong beliefs that people hold. And before I go any further than that, please email us at phil@ocdrecovery.com and we'll get back to you in a timely fashion. So I want to start this off by going directly into the black and white beliefs that we're holding when it comes to finances. And I'm going to hit it from a couple different angles. So this is what we call the DIB sheet, the disputing your irrational belief sheet. I'm going to kind of level this out a little bit there. There we go. Where I'm going to go over some of the black and white beliefs that we see on, that didn't do anything, that's hilarious, that we see when it comes to finances. So let's start with one about, say, being poor. Okay, so the activating event. So remember, how this operates is, if you've never seen our stuff before, the way that most people operate on Earth, whether it's biologically or innately, just because it's a little bit easier to operate like this, is A equals C. So most people operate off activating events equals consequence. So I'll give you an example. Being poor equals depression, right? Or on the opposite of that, being rich equals happy, which we certainly know isn't true because we see really sad cases of people taking their life who are worth billions of dollars, literally in the B's. So this is how most people operate. But what's actually going on is we have A plus B equals C. So being poor is the activating event. Then the belief system would be it's absolutely horrendous to be poor, and that would equal a strong negative emotion such as anger or resentment towards the world. See, what I've noticed is when I read a lot of books on psychology, modern day psychologists, people who are really, really famous, and I do tend to read their works because they have a lot of really good points. But something that many of them are missing is this belief that the world is the reason why they're angry. The world being a negative place is why they're depressed. That's certainly not true because there's people that live in really tough environments and they're not depressed. And then people say, well, that's a chemical imbalance. We know that's more than likely not the case because when we talk to them and I sit them down for an hour, I get a sense of these really strong belief systems that they're holding, and it makes a lot of sense on why they're depressed or why they're angry. So it is important to start with that. So the activating event would say being poor or not having money. And then I'll go into your beliefs. It's absolutely terrible to be poor. I can't stand not having money. I should be able to spend money how I want. It should be my way. Life should be the way I want it to be. And then that will equal your negative, unhealthy emotions, which could be a combination of, any type of anxiety, chronic anxiety, shame and embarrassment from being poor and your family finding out your friends, rage and anger at the world, victimhood mentality, unfairness, yelling at other people for having more money than you, depression, a lot of people, extreme problematic jealousy and envy. I always say there's a very big difference between healthy dosages of envy and jealousy versus problematic. Healthy dosages of negative emotions which are substantiated by rational beliefs, not strong irrational beliefs, which we'll go over. Because when you look at that, you might say, wow, I'm jealous that that person has this in their life, a material or something that you want. How can I change my life to get those things in my life? I would like to have that. And then you have all these negative behaviors, complaining, venting, isolation. Well, I don't have what I want in my life. I'm already poor. I might as well just stay poor forever, and kind of falling into that victimhood, anger, resentment, yelling at your friends, putting them down, trying to make a mockery of them to make yourself feel better. All of this makes sense because strong, irrational beliefs surrounding money are really big. So, and I see them all the time. Now, let's go to another one, which might not seem problematic, which I said, so the activating event is having money or being rich or having fame or good looks. So you can plug and chug any of these external factors. Okay. So the belief is I must always stay rich. I must always have financial freedom. I can't stand going back to not having money. Maybe you were really poor. Now you have a lot of money. It's absolutely horrendous if I lost my money and life is not worth living. And then those compulsions, those negative and healthy emotions could be extreme overanalyzing, overconcern. And the maladaptive behaviors is checking your finances 25 times a day, being overly cautious, not spending money, not going out and getting a coffee. I mean, you hear a lot of stuff out there where people are like, don't drink coffee, don't have any fun, save all your money. That's a very, very, very bad way to live your life. We're not saying you have to go out there and be reckless. We're saying that you're going to die, which you are. It's comical when you look at it in that sense, because the way that people are acting, they're acting like they're going to live till 400. If you have the money, you want to buy a sports car, go buy a sports car. You want to go on vacation and be a little bit reckless, go be reckless. And you can change your behaviors when you go back. But everyone thinks they can live this very strict life. And it's those black and white beliefs in business, such as, I'm the man, I have a bunch of money, you're a loser, I'm the shit. Or, oh my God, I have no money, you're an idiot, you're evil because you have money and I don't. And it can swing to either side of the spectrum. So, but the reality is, you can accept yourself whether you have a lot of money or you don't have any money, and you can work on the beliefs that are perpetuating that. But it is very important to realize that regardless of the situation, the belief is what's causing the strong emotional disturbance. Not the lack of money or the surplus of money. It's the belief about how you view money that's causing depression, anger, resentment, overanalyzing, severe checking. Now, let's go over some of the common compulsions that I see. These are ones that I fell into myself. It wasn't the main thing for me, but I definitely noticed I had a lot of this. Let's start with the compulsive side, then we'll go to the checking and the avoidance side. So we got compulsively talking about your finances all day long, okay? Do we have this much money? What about this? Can I compulsively tracking your finances, looking at your bank statements all the time, checking prices, being an extreme coupon shopper. Again, nothing inherently wrong with some of these things, but usually a form of subtle control. And then on the avoidance side is never checking your finances. Most people are turning a blind eye to many things in their life. One of the best things you can do is any topic in life, whether it's finances, politics, money, religion. You don't have to speak about these things, but if you ignore them completely, if you ignore people completely, if you ignore speaking about finances completely, it will be very difficult for you to handle real life situations when stuff pops up, as it does. So balance lies in the middle, and you're never going to be able to get certainty on whether you're tracking something too much or too little. Am I compulsively looking at this? Am I avoiding it? And going back and forth. You're going to have to feel that confusion if you're doing it compulsively or avoidance behavior, because that's the number one thing that people are doing. What's the ideal number? There's these words that really are unhealthy for many people. Optimal, ideal, perfect, best. Like what's the best financial plan? What's the best way to not be poor? What's the most optimal business plan? These are all modern day new age terms. They're like 20, 30 years old in the way they're being used because of the explosion of social media and how people can kind of sit down with a cigar in their mouth with their feet up on a leather chair and some really nice $3,000 Louboutin shoes. And they're all like, it's this and that. And a lot of this stuff is very, very nonsensical when we know really what works in anything in life. Relationship, consistency, business, finances. It's just moderation, balance, continuing day in, day out with the small behaviors and seeing where you get. Because even if you have the best financial plan on the planet, doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Just because you don't have that much financial skills doesn't mean you won't someday something happens and you acquire a lot of money. And that's the other side of the coin too. People are like, oh, if you don't have the perfect tools, you'll never be successful. But I've seen plenty of people where they say, hey, look, I got really lucky in the market timing and I made a bunch of money. I don't think I could do it again. Because then there's this belief, like if someone hit a perfect market timing and had an idea and made, hundreds of millions of dollars, people are like, you could replicate that now 50 times. And they're like, no, I couldn't. I got really lucky. People don't want to believe in luck, but there's a lot more luck when it comes to market timing and just the way the world works, and that goes directly into conditional life acceptance. Just because you have the perfect business idea does not mean you're going to be successful, and just because you're poor now doesn't mean you're going to be poor forever, but if you keep up with the complaining and the negative behaviors, you give yourself a much higher chance of staying in that lower income bracket, which you still could accept. I'm just using these for all these examples. So you definitely want to take a look at those strong black and white irrational beliefs you're holding about money. We all see them. They're very, very common. Again, looking at the, oh my gosh, it would be terrible to not have money. The over concern of I must not lose my money. I have to be so, just, oh my God, I now have $1 million, for an example. I have to make sure I never lose that $1 million. Very similar to sobriety. It's very good to stay sober. You don't want to go back to using hard drugs and alcohol if you have a problem. But if you have OCD and you have those strong beliefs such as, I must never relapse, never, the fear cycle is not going to let you go. You're going to have to accept your worst case scenario, which is you don't know what's going to happen to you in 30 years from now. Maybe you've been sober for 30 years, alcohol, and your wife gets murdered, and you come home and find her body and you resort to the bottle. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but these are realistic scenarios that happen. Your children die in a car accident. You become depressed. You start drinking. You start using drugs. We're not saying that this is going to happen. We're saying you're better off working at the possibility of that's your worst case scenario. Many people don't want to do that because they want to live in this very, very optimism-based world, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that until something really goes wrong, and then we have a big problem. One of my favorite quotes by Dr. Albert Ellis is, a mixture of contentment comes from realism, skepticism, and optimism. If you have too much of one, then you're not going to get a perfect ratio, third to third to third, but you really set yourself up for some problems. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this belief. Shout out to, I can't remember your name, I don't have my laptop up, that I know you wanted me to make this, I believe on the TikTok. You asked if I could do this. So hopefully this answers your question. If you guys have any comments, or ladies down below, please let me know. I'll answer them. I had a lot of these myself. I became extremely obsessed about economics. Watched a lot of it, still watch a lot of it, but the way I looked at it was really, really bad. I still can fall into it at times, where I have to look at things rationally because I'm a human. And we all have these particular belief systems, regardless of how rational, regardless if you're practicing these tools for 20 to 30 years, you're still a human and can fall back and have to just look at things in a rational manner. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, the moral of this video is there's nothing inherently wrong with being, frugal with your money and all sorts of stuff, and then being responsible if you have a bunch of debts and have to do stuff. But remember, whatever you are in your financial situation cannot define you as a human. Humans have value for just being alive. There's no difference between someone who has a lot of money, someone who has no money, and their actual personhood. They're just a person. One has money, one doesn't. One may be making bad decisions, one might not, but they're still people. Two different people. The world's very black and white about money. And remember, you are going to die one day. Again, that doesn't mean you have to be very irresponsible. It just means that when you're 90 years old, if you live, there's a very good possibility you might be thinking, I wish I had ice cream a little bit more. I wish I did this. You probably aren't going to be saying, hey, I'm so happy I did absolutely nothing. Maybe you would, but I have to bet not. Easy to say that when we're young, but when we look at documentaries of centenarians or people who have lived longer lives, they usually tend to talk about stuff in that type of perspective manner. Thank you again. Remember, Phil at OCDrecovery.com, and hope to hear from you soon. Have a good one, everyone.